All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Move More, Worry Less. I am your host, Paige Festa, the founder and, oh my gosh, forgetting my own title, the founder and designer at 13 Fit Apparel. I am here today with my friend, Heather, who I met only a couple of weeks ago via Zoom. And we just totally hit it off. And what was supposed to be like a 20, 30-minute Zoom call ended up being an hour and a half. So I'm really excited to have her here today. She is a life coach / alignment coach, if you will. She owns Ignite Your Life. She is a yoga instructor, and she has been in recovery from an eating disorder for almost 11 years. That was a really long-winded intro. So Heather, I'm going to give you the floor if you want to tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit about your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm just so grateful to be here and so grateful to be able to hang with you again. I mean, our last conversation really did. We chatted for such a long time. It was so great. And so I'm just grateful to be here with you again. So my name's Heather. I live in South Florida, on the East Coast of Florida. If I was cool enough, I'd do like some sort of hand symbol for that, but I don't know any. Like East Coast. Anyway, I'm a huge dork, just in case you couldn't tell from that. I'm a huge dork. I have two adorable, I call them pups still, like I call them pups. They're old. They're like 11, 12, around there. Aww. And I love them so much. I have the cutest niece and nephew. And yeah, I'm all about my family and whatnot. That's a little bit of personal stuff about me. My business, I'm an alignment and purpose coach. And so essentially what I do is I empower women to implement long-lasting mindset shifts to take ownership of their lives, discover their purpose, and integrate their mind, body, and soul. Everything that I do is all about like aligning your mind, body, and soul and making sure that you yourself feel incredibly aligned. The things that you say you are, you actually are. And so that you're in this level of like really deep integrity and feeling like you are just connected to yourself so that you can connect with others in a greater and deeper manner. And that's like other people, that's also just connecting with the world around you. And I feel like, especially nowadays with this still COVID, somewhat post-COVID, people not really knowing where we are, I feel like connection is it's such an important thing with people being in lockdown. Everyone that I've spoken to, or a lot of people who I've spoken to over this last year and a half or so, people are just feeling disconnected. And a lot of people have experienced shifts in their lives where they were working in like a physical office or something before and are now working from home, or they were doing something before and because of COVID, they realized that it wasn't fueling them. It wasn't fulfilling them. And so that's kind of where I step in supporting people in discovering what they're really, truly passionate about so that they can go out and actually just create that for themselves. As you mentioned, I think you mentioned that I'm a yoga teacher also. Yes, I'm a yoga teacher also. I'll just leave it at that. I've been teaching yoga for a while. I love yoga. You mentioned that that I have been in recovery from an eating disorder for almost 11 years, which I feel like it is just a completely different lifetime ago. It's been so long, and still I can like pinpoint different experiences that I've had, and I can like really easily just go back and share what it was like then and what it's like now and how I actually got here. And the biggest part of how I got here is my yoga practice. So it's like a gift that I get to share with people I want to say on a daily basis, whether I'm actually teaching a class or whether it's just in how I show up as a human, I'm getting to share that gift with people on a very consistent basis. And I'm so grateful for it. That was probably really long-winded and much more than you were asking for.
No, it was absolutely perfect. And I love it. I love it all. So I would love to talk about, how you got into yoga and then how that translated into your business. And then I want to pull in some of your eating disorder story, because I feel like it's all kind of intertwined. So maybe let's start with the journey into yoga and then how that built your business.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Cool.
So I'm just gonna like say it straight out. I was severely anorexic in my teens and early 20s. And part of my, and I'm like really candid about it too, just like super open. So if you have any questions, just know that it's not like a shameful, like it's not like a dirty little secret or anything. Like,
Right.
no, it is what it is. It was my life. It's not who I am anymore. And it's a huge part of how I got to being the version of myself that I get to show up as now.
Right.
So I was like part of my eating disorder was over exercise. And I'd always been really athletic. Like I played sports growing up. I swam competitively. I was always involved in something. And then in my teens and early 20s, I started like going to the gym a lot, and I started taking a lot of kickboxing classes. And I was taking kickboxing classes from this one instructor at LA Fitness. I could so clearly see her in my mind to this day. I was taking so many classes of hers, and she paused and she stopped me one day and she looked at me and said, Heather, you need yoga. And I'd heard of yoga. I had no idea what yoga was. I'd never been to a yoga class before, but I was and still am a really obedient person. And so when someone who I trusted and valued, I was going to this woman's classes very consistently. And so when she told me to go to yoga, I did what she said and I went to yoga. I went to the exact class, to the exact studio, to the exact instructor, probably to the exact time she told me to go also. I'm really good at following directions.
Yeah.
So I went to yoga, and what I'll say about that first experience is that I remember sitting down after class and thinking to myself, that was the first time that I've experienced being in my physical body and like out of my thinking head. And so it was a really profound experience for me, and I fell in love with it. Like from that day on, I just that's what I did. I fell in love with my yoga mat. I fell in love with my yoga practice, and so I kept showing up and I kept going back. Yeah.
So when you started doing yoga, that was in the midst of your eating disorder. Like where in your journey was that you found yoga? Was your eating disorder just beginning? Like kind of where does that fall?
Yeah, it was like sort of in the beginning of it, I would say. It was sort of in the beginning of it. And I utilized, and this is like really common for people, not saying that everyone who does this is eating disordered, but it was like this was very much so a part of my experience. I initially was going for the physicalness of it. Like I was going because I liked the way that made my body feel. I was going because of for that physical journey, not quite tuning in with the mental aspect of it yet. And that's really common for it's something that I see very often, that I hear from a lot of people at first when they start their yoga practice, like, yeah, I just love the way this makes my body feel. Right. And that can be something that keeps people coming back in the beginning. And then after a while, the things that I start to hear from people are like, yeah, my mind feels really calm now.
Right.
Like I can focus more. I'm not quite as anxious as I was when I showed up, et cetera, et cetera. And so in the beginning, I was really like, I was going for that. I was going for the way that it made, like, I felt like in my body and out of my head. And that's all I knew. And I was also a really regimented person. So I'm not quite as regimented now. I do appreciate a schedule just for some like fair boundaries within my day and within my life. But the practice that I was going to, or where I was told to go, was Bikram. And so it's a like consistent practice every single time you show up. And that was something that really resonated for me. I don't think I quite realized at that point in time that I had really bad anxiety, or that I was like experiencing panic attacks. I, around the same time, was diagnosed with asthma. And so after as a result of having sinus surgery, I think the doctor said that I was like so opened up after sinus surgery that it like opened me up to so many more allergens, and just like the result of that was asthma. And so, and And so I think in the beginning, those lines were really blurred with like, well, what's an asthma attack and what, and I think that everything was just acknowledged as an asthma attack. And really some of those were probably panic attacks, like looking back on it, just looking back and seeing what I was going through and what my experience was at that point in time. Oh, how did I get on that tangent? Let me just backtrack for a second here.
Yeah.
Okay. So really regimented, liked the consistent oh yeah, that's how I got on that. So it, I like looking back on it, it was the first time like, and because I said this already, it was the first time that I experienced being in my body and being out of my head. So there definitely was like right from the start, there was mental benefit to it. Like I wasn't sitting in thought during that point in time. And so even though I might not have pinpointed that as a reason for why I kept going back, it was probably a contributing factor with why I kept going back. And my yoga practice is something that continued and continued and continued and continued. And then all of a sudden I went to go and get help for my eating disorder, and where that I didn't go to treatment. I did see a therapist for a little while, and I did work with a nutritionist for a little while as well. And then I kind of like stopped working with them because I realized that I didn't actually, I was very like, I don't want to say I didn't believe in it in like a controlling eating disordered way, but I didn't really believe in what I was being told to do, because for me specifically, what I was being told to do by a nutritionist was like more like controlling than where I wanted to be. And I wanted to just be able to like eat intuitively and be able to like trust what my body wanted, which is that was a journey that I took, and I'm very grateful for it and whatnot. But yeah, once I stopped going to therapy and stopped going to that nutritionist, I really leaned into my yoga practice. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge form of healing for me. And so that really stuck with me, and it really stayed with me over the years. I mean, what was something that I initially was sent to essentially is something that I just like held on to. And I don't want to say I held on to it for dear life, but I kind of did. I mean, it's been the most consistent thing in my life, other than my family, of course. It's been the most consistent thing in my life for almost 20 years now.
Right.
Because I was 16 when I first went, and I'm 35 now. So like, yeah, I mean, 19 years, that's a pretty significant amount of time. Yeah. If I'm doing math correctly.
That feels right. So your yoga practice obviously transitioned into you becoming an instructor, and then later on, launching your own business. So let's talk a little bit about that transition and where that shift was for you from going from student to teacher, but I'm sure you're still a student because most teachers are still students. Yeah. And then how that translates into your coaching business.
Yeah. So I think I always knew, not always, but there was a turning point where I realized that at some point I was going to do teacher training, and then I did. And the turning point there was, I realized that there was something that I could share. Like I realized that it was such a safe space, and it was such a safe haven for me through my recovery process, that once I at some point, and I don't remember ever acknowledging, oh, I think I've gotten to a really good point. Like I don't remember any like big awakening, like, oh my God, it's the time. Like I don't remember that. But what I do remember is like, I felt good. And I had been in recovery for quite a few years at that point in time. And so I decided that it was the right time to do a yoga practice, and it's to do a yoga teacher training. And it's not just that it was the right time, it's also the studio that I was going to at that point in time clicked. Like the practice clicked with me. the mentality and everything behind the practice really clicked with me. And so I kind of like, I knew that that was the right space for me to do the training. And so I did. And the transition that occurred is like, I'd been teaching yoga and leading programs for quite a few years. And the institute that I did a lot of training through was very coaching oriented. So a lot of like a big piece of the puzzle there was self-inquiry. And the self-inquiry that I did really helped me work through a lot of the things that I had experienced and like throughout my life, like things that I was holding on to or things that I could they just weren't serving me. And the inquiry that I did during that training or during like multiple trainings led me to this like experience of just vitality and freedom that I hadn't quite experienced ever. And when I was like, while I was watching my own continual growth and my own continual evolution, I knew that I had the capacity to support people in living their greatest lives possible as well. And so I had formulated the idea of my business. Like I had it in the back of my mind for a while. And I was kind of just like taking in everything, like taking an experience at this studio, taking an experience from this teacher that I value, taking an experience from here. And eventually I got to a point where I knew that it was the right time for me to like step up and launch my business.
Wow. So when did you launch your business?
About a year ago. I'd been doing this. Yeah, it was just about a year ago. I'd been teaching yoga for a while and leading coaching programs for a while and facilitating different leadership development programs. And so all of the pieces of the puzzle were there. Like so like that wasn't new for me. It was just the aspect of like, oh, this is like, it's time for me to launch this so that I can create the program that feels good for me to deliver with people. And so that I have the ability to like curate from point A to point Z, the experience that clients will have in a way that feels aligned with me to deliver it, if that makes sense.
Right. So then what does a typical session or program or experience with a client look like for you? I'm sure it's very like not a one size fits all situation because you're working with specific people and their personalities and their goals. But I guess if you were able to kind of summarize what you do and how you work with your clients, how does that interaction work?
So you are spot on in saying that it's not one size fits all. Do I have a 12-week program that I've created and like each session builds upon the next, which builds upon the next? Yes, I absolutely have that. And that's kind of customizable based on what someone says their intention is when they first show up on their first day. So every single thing, like what I do through my program, and then I do have clients who continue on after the program, of course, because I mean, it's 12 sessions and sometimes people are like, this is freaking great. I had a wonderful experience. I adore you and I'm not ready to stop working with you yet. Love those people. And even if people, I mean, like even with people who are like, dude, this gave me exactly what I want, still want to stay involved, but not quite like, don't necessarily want the one-on-one weekly coaching anymore. Love them too. There's no favoritism being played here, but the program is really customizable based on what someone is coming in with. So if someone is coming in like not feeling like they are connected to themselves and really wanting to lean into a greater level of like self-care and self-love practices and all of that, the focus of the program will be more geared towards that. Very similar content, very similar like layout and direction to someone who might be coming in saying, I'm not really fulfilled at my job and I want to live a life, like a purposeful life. I want to enjoy what I do. It'll be like very similar content, but I'll be taking an approach towards someone like discovering their real, like their passion.
Right.
With one person, and with another person, it might be geared more towards like incorporating deeper mindfulness practices and self-care practices and all of that. Have the program laid out. It's just, I can really listen in and hone in on what's going to be of most support to any one client, any individual client, I mean.
Right. So and after I ask this question, I'm going to backtrack into the eating disorder thing again.
Okay.
I guess there's probably not going to be an easy answer for this because I'm sure all of your clients are so different, but just out of curiosity, what is a typical client for you? Or like you gave 2 examples of people that might be coming to you, they're not fulfilled in their job or need help, feeling connected to themselves. But what are the, like some reasons that people would come to you or does my question make sense?
I get what you're saying. Definitely get where you're going with that. Okay. So the first thing that popped into my mind when you asked that was people who are seeking a shift in their life.
Okay.
Like so many people who I've spoken to over the last couple of years, like COVID was really a turning point for people.
Yeah.
I mean, like between possibly losing a job, possibly losing a family member, not possibly, like going from working in a physical space to maybe having to work from home. There's like concrete experiences that people had over this last year and a half or so. And a lot of people that I end up coming into contact with, a lot of people I end up talking to are just looking for a shift. Like they either don't feel connected to themselves anymore. They don't feel aligned with what they're doing. They realize that they have so much more potential and that they could really be in creation of what they want because they've experienced working from home already. So like, they know that they can kind of take things into their own hands. And so people looking for shift. And then also people who are just looking for a deeper level of connection. Like there's such a big disconnect that occurred very logically through lockdown and through people being isolated. And those like that kind of varied throughout the entirety of the world. I think we had it like, not going to turn this in, like for better or for worse, we had it in a very different experience here in Florida than people in California did, or than people in Texas did, or than people like overseas did, because we opened up quite early. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah. Oh, I do. Florida doesn't care.
we opened up quite early. And so it was a very different experience here than for people in other states and for people in other countries. So while we had been able to like cohabitate, like experience and connect with people sooner in the same space than people elsewhere. And so like there's just this disconnect that and it wasn't even a gradual disconnect. It was a like boom, lockdown.
Right.
Like this day you're with people, this day you are mandated to stay inside.
Right.
Yeah. Scrounge up all your toilet paper, guys. Get everything you need because you're staying in.
Right.
And so and I obviously I say that like joke like with a little bit more lightheartedness. Like I know the seriousness that there was to it. But yeah, people, I mean, rightfully so, when you're told that you can't go and be around other people anymore, there's disconnection and there's isolation. And so I see people still just starting to come out of that, and people starting to say like, yeah, I feel a little socially awkward right now. I'm not like, I don't know how to act around you. Am I allowed to hug you? Am I allowed to sit next to you? Do I need to leave a space in between us? Are we allowed in the same vehicle? Like there's so much awkwardness that occurred for a lot of people. And so people who come to me are really like the two of the biggest things that I see are people who are looking to feel reconnected to themselves and to others, and people who are looking for a shift in their life because they're like, okay, what I was doing before, I don't need that rat race anymore.
Right.
Like I don't need it. I don't need it and I don't want it. Like people are just looking for change. And so that's where alignment and purpose coaching comes in. I get to really just be a stand for people and watch people create the exact lives that they want to live, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's that's a really special job to have too. You know, somebody's trusting you with, you know, all the stuff that might be going on with them personally. And I don't know, I feel like that's a very intimate relationship, but and also a very it's special, you know, you get to really help people.
I appreciate that. And yeah, that's it. I mean, that's exactly how I feel. I feel very humbled and very grateful to be able to do the work that I do. And you mentioned something before. You said, so what does a typical session look like? And like, I listen, like I listen, and I listen some more. And then through listening, I can intuitively just hear what would make a difference in the moment for that person.
Yeah.
And obviously I have tools that I share, and I have a specific focus for each session, which of course is geared towards supporting the client in exactly what it is that they want to fulfill on through our work together. But really it's just listening.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. It's the listening that makes a difference for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about your eating disorder and your journey with that, not to like harp on things that are potentially painful or, you know, I know that you're an open book, but I just think that it's a really incredible journey that you've had, that number one, that it's been 11 years and like, you feel good. And you've transitioned your life from a place of struggle to a place of helping other people. So it's just a really awesome journey. And it's something that I definitely want our listeners to hear about. So let's talk about what kind of led to your eating disorder and your experience with it. Like, what was it like mentally and physically? And just your experience with anorexia.
So I'm not sure. You see the wheels turning.
Yeah.
So, so I don't remember there ever being a day where I just thought to myself, all right, eating disorder, it's time, let's do this. I don't remember. And obviously I say that lightheartedly, obviously I don't remember choosing it. It's in my experience, at least, it's not something that I just sought out and chose oh, I'm going to do this. It's kind of something that just happened. And I know that might not make much sense for people. But that's just how it was for me. And so essentially, just to give paint a little bit of a picture, and some of it I already touched on, so you'll get some more context for that now. But 10th grade was a really rough year. So 10th grade for me was 2001. I'm 35. So 10th grade was 2001. The summer before 10th grade, I had sinus surgery, and it was fine for a few months. And then in September 2001, right around September 11th, I started having difficulty breathing. And the reason I had sinus surgery, I had 13 sinus infections within approximately 9 months. And the ENT was like, yeah, we got to do something. So it was a lot. And so I did the surgery, it was fine through the summer. And then September 11th, I was in New York. I grew up on Long Island, 40 minutes out of the city. And I started having a lot of difficulty breathing, and I was hospitalized with asthmatic pneumonia. And at that point in time, I was living in New York. I was hospitalized with asthmatic pneumonia. September 11th had happened. I can still see the visual of being in bed, and the only thing that was on TV was September 11th, September 11th, September 11th. Not saying that that is something that contributed to it, but I was in the children's ward of a hospital, and it just so happened that the person that I was roomed with was in there inpatient for an eating disorder. And I'm also not saying that that is something that contributed to it. I'm just painting the scene here. So I was hospitalized with asthmatic pneumonia, right around September 11th, roommate, eating disordered. In 10th grade also, I'm going to fast forward a couple of months because that was September. In 10th grade also, my grandfather, who was my favorite person and still is in my heart, he passed away. I also experienced some really deep trauma at a youth group event in that same year. And so at a Jewish youth group event. And so it was like one thing after another. And I don't remember anything ever I don't remember a day where it was like, oh, this started, but all of a sudden it started.
Right.
And looking back, I can see in prior years, I could see that there were things with me that were a little finicky when it came to food. But it was in 10th grade or late in 10th grade that it kind of just took on a life of its own. And I don't remember seeing that there was a problem. It was pointed out to me that there was a problem, but I don't personally remember seeing that there was a problem. I was just doing what I was doing. And then all of a sudden, at some point, I did see that there was a problem. And when I finally, and this is, I know that I jumped 7 to 10 years at this point in time, but
right.
But it's from 10th grade to all of a sudden I had finished college and was in grad school. I had just moved to Florida a year earlier. I realized that I could not continue doing what I was doing. And I no longer, not that I ever wanted to be doing what I was doing, but I knew that I couldn't go on doing what I was doing anymore.
Yeah.
And so I sought out help through a support group. And that really, between that and then going to through that support group, I was referred to a therapist and I was referred to a nutritionist who I subsequently stopped going to, but then leaned deeper into my yoga practice and the principles that I knew from my yoga practice. That was really my recovery process. Yeah.
So, and I don't know how to ask this question exactly, because I also don't want it to sound like crazy ignorant or anything, but why were you allowing the eating disorder to kind of take control? Were you thinking about it? Do you know what I mean? Or was there an anxiety that went along with it? I guess the better question is what was your thought process? And was it something that you were actively thinking about, or was it something that was just happening and you didn't even realize it till you're years down the line and you're like, I'm not eating?
Yeah. So it was not something that I was consciously doing. I was not thinking okay, how can I do this? How can I, that was not my process. I know that in some Lifetime movies and all of that, I know that you'll see people researching it. And that was not me. I was not researching nutrition. I was not doing any of that. It was just slowly but surely restricting and then restricting and then restricting and then restricting. And I don't remember, I can look back and see some really wonky things that I was doing, but they're not anything that I was consciously thinking of actively making the choice to do. I was not in control. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's the truth. I was not in control. This Heather right here was not running the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do know that sounds crazy. And I also know that that eating disorders are a concept that are really challenging for people to understand because of the deep level of craziness that ensues. But, and I'm like not generalizing for all people because everyone has their own experience with it. What I can say for me in my own personal experience is I was not running the show. I don't know who was, but it's like this is going to sound really crazy. I'm going to go for it anyway. I was like possessed
Yeah.
by an eating disorder that just like fully had control of me. And I can look back on it and I could see like family dinners that like major discomfort resulted at because of me. I can look back and see all of those things. And I can also look back and like, I did not intentionally attempt to like cause an argument at a family dinner or make a situation really uncomfortable. Like I did not, like those weren't things that I was sitting in, like planning out, plotting, how can I do this? Like that just was not, that just was not, it wasn't my experience.
Right.
Things just like it kind of just happened.
Yeah. I mean, you keep saying it sounds crazy, and I don't think it sounds crazy. I think it is really interesting because I'm sure a lot of people who have had similar experiences to you know exactly what you mean. And I personally have never had an eating disorder, and this is going to sound crazy. When I was in high school, I wanted to have an eating disorder because I wanted to be skinny, and I was like, what can I do? And like, I wanted it to happen, but like, I was like, I'm too hungry. Like, so you're not crazy. Like high school Paige is crazy. Who's like, how can I make this happen? Like I was actually, but that being said, I had control over it and couldn't make it happen. You know what I mean? So there's something to be said for that. Like I think that can apply to a lot of different things too. People don't choose everything that happens to them in their life, in my opinion, anyway. You didn't choose to have an eating disorder. Somehow it took over. And, but you overcame it. So
yeah. It's very funny because I remember at one point, I can't remember if it was like somewhere near the end or like right in the beginning of me going to get help. And someone made a comment like, oh, you have such good restraint. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, if you only knew like how difficult this was for me right now. Like I am not trying to have restraint. I wish I was just able to eat like a normal person.
Oh my gosh.
I remember, I can't remember if it was towards the end or like right in the beginning of when I went to get help, but I remember that interaction. I have no idea who said it, but I remember the interaction itself. Don't remember where I was, don't remember who said it, but I like can clearly remember hearing the words and then the thought that went through my mind, like, ugh.
Right. I mean, it just goes to show like you never know what somebody is going through, and you don't know where somebody is on their journey. So somebody to you might be like, wow, like great willpower. And you're like,
right.
No, I'm trying to not do that. You know what I mean? So I think that speaks very, loudly, I guess, to the fact that you just don't know what is going on in everybody's journey.
What I could say is one of the ways that I use that experience, because, excuse me, I have the hiccups apparently. So my experience with my eating disorder, like I know that in the beginning of this, I said like, it's not like a dirty secret. Like there's like nothing weird about talking about it. Like the way that I see it is it's my experience. Like it's not my story. It's not anything bad. It's my experience. Like that was a part of my life and it's not who I am anymore. And I wouldn't change any, and I know that this, like, would I wish this upon anyone and would I wish this upon myself? No, but I also wouldn't change my history. Like I wouldn't, if I had the ability to go back in time, like I would not take away any of that hardship, because that experience and that hardship led me to be exactly who I am right now. It led me to go through the journey that I went through. And the journey that I went through is why I'm able to be of support to so many people now.
Right.
So and that journey that I went through, like all of that, like those years that I spent in an eating disorder, it all led me to have this really deep intuitive connection with my body and with my soul now. So I am like really in tune with my body sensations, and I'm really present with everything that I'm experiencing. And so it's like, that's just one of the tools and one of the ways that I can really be of support with clients and be of support with people, with people around me. And it's also really interesting because it's what connects so deeply to my yoga practice and to like my teaching of yoga. It's all about presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like presence within your body, presence within your physical experiences, presence within your thoughts, because I mean, like, let's face it, our bodies actually hear every single thought that goes through our mind, whether they're good or bad. So, or not good or bad, but whether they're like supportive, empowering thoughts or really disempowering thoughts, your body hears them. And so the ability to stay present with your thoughts to like shift your vision, your ability to stay present with your physical sensations so that you can like stay in your body as opposed to being like somewhere like mentally in outer space,
Right.
Your ability to stay present with the people who are around you so that you can actually listen and connect with them, your ability to stay present with your environment and your surroundings. I mean, how many times have you been walking or driving somewhere and then all of a sudden you're at your destination and have no idea how you got there?
Right. Yeah.
So the ability to stay present, like with your surroundings and with your environment can really lead to just a deep level of appreciation and a deeper level of connection with the world.
Right. I want to comment on what you were saying before about you wouldn't change your experience. And I want to relate to you on that because I feel the same way about my experience. And I'm still going through shit, and we're always going to be going through shit.
Yeah.
My mental health journey has led me to where I am now. And although I'm not quote unquote like fixed or perfect or whatever, I wouldn't change my experience to where I am now, because now it led me to finding fitness, which led me to launching my company, which led me to starting this podcast and connecting with other people and other like-minded people and having a brand that stands for empowering other people. So I think it's
you to meeting yours truly.
Yeah. And then led us to this conversation. So Heather, what I'm trying to say is everything in my life has led up to this moment with you.
The charmer of all charmers.
Oh my gosh.
But it's so
sweet.
It's so true though.
No, I mean, I just think it's a really great way to look at life and experience, because it's so easy day to day to get wrapped up in the negative things, but a lot of those negative things or experiences are what make us into who we are, and becoming resilient and stronger and being able to fulfill what it is that we want to do with our life. So I just wanted to take a moment to relate to you on that, because I totally feel ya.
Yeah, for real. Absolutely. On every level of what you just said.
I'm going to ask one more question about your eating disorder, and then we can talk about other stuff. But because I think that there's a lot of people who are struggling with eating disorders, who might feel alone or might not even realize, like you said, when you were experiencing it, you weren't in control of it. It was just something that was kind of happening. So maybe you could talk about like what it was like in like the midst of all of it. What was it like in a day for you when it came down to eating? Like, what does that look like?
Okay. So I, at different points in time, had like different weird habits surrounding food. So I had like different foods that were like safe to eat.
Okay.
Strange and very relatable to other people, I have no doubt. That's, I mean, like, that's what it was. I mean, anything surrounding food was like a really anxiety ridden experience. Yeah, it just, I mean, it was like, even around the people who were like closest to me in my life, it was just a really, really, really challenging and really anxiety ridden. And I know like my mom was definitely pit against my dad and my brother a lot, because my mom was like on my side and trying to be really supportive. And my dad and my brother were like, they were showing their support in other ways.
Right.
Like their ways were like, nope, she needs help. Nope, get her help. Nope, get her help. And my mom was like, she says that she's going to do this, and she says that she's going to do, and so I know that it caused difficulty there. And I'm like so grateful that it's not that way anymore, and that I have a really great relationship with both my parents, and like a great relationship with my brother, and like I have beautiful sister-in-law, niece and nephew, and so I'm grateful for all of that. But yeah, it was like it was just food circumstances were just challenging. And I remember like at a certain point in time, like when I was ready for help, I remember like I can pinpoint a couple of different times where I would just be like in front of the fridge or in front of the cabinets and like have no idea what to do with myself. Like I knew that I wanted to eat something, and I knew that I needed to eat something, but I just like didn't know what to do with that, which is, for anyone who's listening or who might hear this, who knows me now, is like so far from who I am at this point, because like I'm all about food prep, and I'm all about cooking and like doing fun things in the kitchen. And I'm the one who always has snacks. Like, so it's like, I'm very much so a different person than I was then. And again, that version of Heather 10, almost 11 plus years ago led me to be the version of Heather that I am now, which is a Heather that can like, that has a really like deep logical knowledge of nutrition, and a really good understanding and a really good connection, like a really good understanding of the body, and a really deep connection with my body. A really like just a really deep way, and a really like just like a really strong and empowering way to like work with other people and to like support them in living their greatest lives possible and creating exactly what it is that they want for themselves in their own life, whether that's like mindset shifts, so that they're shifting from, so that they have tools to shift from disempowering thoughts to empowering thoughts, whether it's supporting people in developing like mindfulness tools, whether it's supporting people in discovering like what they actually want to do with their lives.
Yeah.
There's so many different things. There's just so many different things in so many different ways that, because of my past experiences, I'm able to really connect with people and able to really listen to them in a deep and impactful way.
Yeah. I think it's just so cool how your story is so intertwined between, you know, your experience, your yoga practice and your fitness background, and then how it led you to launching a business that helps people in those areas. It's just like, it just all connected, and it's just really, really incredible. So I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we'll do our little wrap up here. Unless there's anything else that you want to throw in, you're more than welcome to. But my last question is just going to be for somebody seeking a shift in their life, whether that's job wise, personally, whatever the case is. What would some helpful words of advice or words of wisdom would you give to them, besides hiring you to help them, you know, besides that, because they definitely should, obviously, we know that.
So my first answer was going to be, call me.
Right.
Truly though, So I will back that up and say, like, reach out, because you're absolutely not alone. I'm here, and I would love to be of support to you. And I'd really just love to connect and see, like, honestly, how I could support you in creating exactly what it is that you want for yourself in your life. So there's that. But then the other thing that I would say is, for someone who's struggling with, like, wanting to see shift in their life, or wanting to just have something different, I'd say show yourself grace. Because whatever it is that you're experiencing right now, like, whatever the thought is, whatever the sensation is that you're experiencing, it's not permanent. And so if you're in this space right now of, like, beating yourself up, like, how am I still at this job? I'm so miserable. Why am I still in this relationship? Just, like, take a deep breath, self-soothe for a second, like, maybe give yourself a hug. It's one of my favorite things to do when I wake up in the morning. Like, I'll be laying in bed and I'll literally just give myself a hug. It's, like, warm and cozy. So you can, like, give yourself a hug, get present in your physicalness. Like, getting present in your physical body will get you out of your head. And I don't know about you, but when I'm stuck in my head, it can go some places. So take a deep breath, get present in your physical body, remind yourself of who you are. Like, say an affirmation, or say, like, some sort of I am statement, like, I am strong, I am powerful, I am XYZ, whatever sounds good for you. And then from there, you can actually move forward in a clear way, because going at it from a way where you're, like, stuck in the disempowering thoughts in your head, it's not going to be the most productive way for you to actually get clear on what it is that you want, and what it is that, like, what the shift is that you're looking for. So pause, take a deep breath, get into your physical body, give yourself some affirmation, like, tell yourself something that resonates for you. And then from there, move forward.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful words of advice. So if our listeners want to find you, follow you, check out what you do, where and how can they find you?
So you can find me on the gram, of course. And by the way, I'm so glad it's back up and running. So
I know, I thought it was, like, and by the time this podcast launches, it's going to be, like, a month later, but
right.
I know, but when it, like, wasn't working, I thought it was my phone, and I just kept turning my phone on and off and everything. And then I found out that it was, like, a thing, and I was like, okay.
I saw the funniest meme yesterday. I can't remember who posted it, but someone posted, it was like, well, Instagram, have you just tried turning it on and off? Like,
oh my God, right.
Or no, it was not Instagram. It was like, Zuckerberg, have you just tried turning the switch on and off?
Right.
Because it's so, I mean, I tried doing the same exact thing. I thought that it was just me.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of hours of not being able to access anything, I finally, like, Googled Instagram not working. And then I realized, oh my God, like,
right, like,
Instagram,
something's
Facebook,
actually,
and WhatsApp are all, they were all down. It's
right.
crazy. It was a really great experience for me, though. Like, I mean, after I realized that I should just stop being stressed about the fact that it wasn't working, like, once I realized that it's not working for anyone, I was like, oh, it's great.
Right. I know, freedom for 24 hours or whatever.
Right. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Heather Viniar. Really creative.
Well, and we'll
Really,
put it in the
really
show notes as well, so people can find it. Yeah.
So my Instagram is Heather Viniar. You can message me there, follow along, see what I'm up to, check it out. So you can do that. You can also head over to my website, and on my website, there's about a bajillion, probably overestimating on that, but a bajillion different places where you can click a button that says schedule a call. So you can always schedule a call with me there if you're interested in that. Otherwise, just, like, you can sign up for for my email list, for the blog. Like, I share some fun stuff, whatever. So you can go there, and my website is, again, really creative, heatherviniar.com.
I love it. Spell your last name for us.
V as in Victor, I, N as in Nancy, IAR. And then
Perfect.
The final way that you can find me is, if you want to just reach out directly, you can send me an email at, wait for it, Heather@heatherviniar.com.
You are wild with your creativity.
I know.
I love it, but you can't forget it, right? I mean,
No.
it's your name. So, and for our listeners today, if you are listening to this podcast and you just absolutely love 13 Fit Apparel and you need something, we are offering a discount code for 20% off. And the discount code. Oh, yikes. She's struggling today. She is struggling. The discount code is, you guessed it, Heather 20. So 20% off. Heather, thank you so much for being here today. It's been such a pleasure and you are so awesome. And I can't wait for our listeners to meet you.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so truly grateful for being here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm just excited to connect with you deeper and to see you next week.
Yeah, definitely. So excited. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Move More, Worry Less. If you have not done so yet, please hit the subscribe button. It helps us grow our purpose and our mission every time you subscribe, like, share, or review us. We are also available on YouTube. We are on Instagram at 13 Fit Apparel, and you could check out our website at www.13fitapparel.com, the word 13 spelled out. We'll talk to you next time.